So I am sitting here with Amy from one of the founders of Soom Foods, which I'm incredibly excited to talk with you, Amy, and thank you for flying in from Philly to be with us.
Thank you for having us.
So one of the things I find the most fascinating about you and your sister's story is that none of you had any experience in the food industry really before starting Soom. Can you tell me about what you were doing prior to founding and how Soom came about?
Well, the joke is that Shelby had a business degree, Jackie married a tahini expert, and I just needed a job graduating college. But we come from a family of entrepreneurs. Both of our parents are entrepreneurs, so entrepreneurship, I really think, runs in our blood. Ironically, I was doing some family research and found that we have a very long history of food entrepreneurship too. Both sides of our family, when they immigrated to the States, started with small food markets in the cities that they were in, both Philadelphia and Baltimore. And that was a really interesting realization, because you're right, we didn't come into this through the culinary lens. We came into it through an entrepreneurial spirit and really through a love of an ingredient that we felt was very underrepresented and underappreciated in the market where we were creating our lives. And so that's kind of the basis, I think, for having not been in food but decided to start a food business.
That is cool. And why tahini? Out of everything you could have started a company out of.
It's funny, it really is. I mean, I guess the Jewish term is like beshert, right, or meant to be. But when Jackie started dating Omri and really started learning more about his opportunities in the tahini market, so Jackie's husband Omri has been in the tahini, or trina as we say here in Israel, for almost 20 years at this point. And back when they were dating in 2010, 11 or so, he was buying tahini from manufacturers and selling it to his own market of hummus restaurants and caterers and things like that. And Jackie was really inspired by it and excited. We'd be on family WhatsApp with me and my sisters, and we'd be like, "What? Where are you?" And she'd be like, "I'm in a warehouse. I like to help my boyfriend move buckets of tahini." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" Shelby, though, having studied entrepreneurship, when she came to live in Israel for a year, realized how amazing tahini is, how versatile it is in the Israeli market. I then lived in Israel for a year during that market research stage, and when we surveyed what was available in the States, we realized that there wasn't a lot available. It didn't taste good. It wasn't branded to the consumer expectations that we were trying to build towards. And so we joke we were young and dumb, as maybe other under 30s think they are too, or maybe we all thought we were smarter than we were, but why not try to bring tahini ourselves then?
What is the difference then that separates like the Israeli tahini from what you saw in the States back then before Soom? Like, what made it so good?
It's really the source of the seeds. So similar to coffee or wine, where sesame seeds grow, produce a different flavor profile, quality, consistency. And at that time, the seeds from Ethiopia were really emerging here, and of course in Lebanon and other primary tahini markets, as the premium seed for pressing into tahini. And what we found in the States was that no tahini that was available was talking about where their seeds were from. I think the other biggest difference was understanding the consumer, or actually understanding their lack of understanding of tahini, right? And that people might have assumed, maybe exporting tahini to the States, that Americans would understand it and know what to do with it. But the reality is that most people had no idea what tahini even was. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of time and consumer education to not only introduce it to them, but then teach them how to use it. And I think that was what was really lacking from the tahini companies that were distributed a decade ago.
Got it. And when did you know, like, we have something here, this is going to be big?
Well, we were so lucky early on that part of that market research, being in Philadelphia, we were able to connect with Mike Solomonov and Steve Cook of Cook and Solo, Zahav, the acclaimed restaurant. And it was only about 18 months into our relationship and working with them that they released their cookbook, the Zahav cookbook, which was a multifaceted award-winning cookbook. And they were nice enough to interview me, and actually Omri was in the States, and I remember going to meet with them to tell them more about the sesame seeds in Ethiopia and tahini or tahina in general. And they were very gracious, and they said, "Can we share about you in the cookbook?" That cookbook is so personal, and cooking in general is so personal, and I think it's what differentiates some of the best restaurants now, is their willingness or interest in sharing about their vendors and what ingredients they're using, or the farms. And they put us in the cookbook. There's a picture of me, Shelby, Jackie, and Omri, the four of us holding these old jars of Soom, naively smiling. And that's when things really started blowing up for us. I mean, we're so appreciative and still so connected to Mike and Steve for many reasons, but that on the top of the list.
That is so cool. It must have been so flattering to open this cookbook and see your faces there.
It was just unbelievable. It's fun to look back now. We were so young and like vibrant, you know, no kids then, but I mean, it was an amazing experience, and we didn't understand the implications that it could have had. Similar to, I think, being a little naive in starting the business, we didn't understand how big it could get, maybe detrimentally, or I think in this case it really helped us. And so being just very open and authentic in each opportunity and taking it for what it was, as opposed to like a puzzle in this very larger, bigger picture, which as a bigger company now we've grown into that sort of thinking. But being young, you know, I was 22, 23 years old, and I think a little naive about what could emerge from this idea.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's so many, you know, young entrepreneurs who want to be in your shoes and take the journey that you had. Can you tell us about where you can find your product today and how you got to where you are with that and having it be more readily available?
Yeah, so it hasn't always been readily available. I mean, that found a big part of the foundation of Soom and the, you know, what we've been able to build the brand on has been those restaurant relationships, and it's been selling our tahini in bigger sizes through distribution and not necessarily in grocery stores. What I didn't realize starting a food company that I'm learning more and more now is how resource intensive consumer sales are, either selling online or selling into grocery stores. That really means time, and of course for a business, money, right, capital. And selling to restaurants didn't have that same type of investment needed, and the restaurants provided so much benefit to us. They not only bought it in bigger quantities, but they bought it more often, right? When tahini was on a menu, they used a bucket a week as opposed to a jar a year. And so that was a huge, you know, benefit. Since we weren't in stores across the country, we have always had our product available on our website, but also on Amazon. And so a lot of people actually purchase our product across the country through Amazon. Yeah. But more recently, since the brand has grown and we've started investing more into the consumer side of Soom, we rebranded, and we actually just launched nationally with Whole Foods earlier this month in May.
Oh, congrats.
Yes, so you can find our tahini and our dark chocolate sea salt, our sweet tahini, in the nut butter section of Whole Foods across the country.
Yum.
Yeah.
I'll certainly be picking that up. And the other question I have for you is, you know, we're here in Israel. Your product is manufactured in Israel. What spoke to you? Obviously, tahini goes along with Israel, but what spoke to you about the innovation and the entrepreneurship here?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the manufacturing of the ingredient is second to none. It's just amazing here. The attention to the quality and the history, of course, of its production. The other thing is just the fact that they're so familiar and appreciative of that ingredient. They take a lot of pride in the product that they're producing. One of the things that we were able to do as three founders, right, it's me and Jackie, but also our oldest sister Shelby, is take advantage of our skills and our unique, you know, life circumstances to give what we needed into the business. And having Jackie here has just been amazing because she can maintain those close relationships with the manufacturers. She can test and taste the product before it, you know, ships in order to make sure that it meets our quality standards. And also, you know, Israelis just have a very contagious, infectious, positive, energizing sense about them. Now, having been here now maybe for almost a week, you recognize there's like this energy here that you know, it almost gets bottled, right, when we bring it over and bring it to the States. So we love it here.
Yeah, no, it's great. And switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about sustainability because, you know, right now that is the topic of the food industry. How are you at Soom working to make sure, you know, the packaging and the products you use are sustainable and good for, you know, the planet, the people who consume it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of our biggest challenges, I'll admit. You know, Soom is merchandised in plastic jars, but of course we prioritize BPA-free and recyclable plastic. It's because it's easier and more conducive to the type of shipping that we're doing in the States. Glass breaks and tahini is very messy, so you know, it's something that we keep in mind. One of the things that inspired us about sesame tahini, of course, in general, is the fact that it is a drought-resistant crop, and its opportunity in the nut butter section to contribute to the category whereas some of its competitors are really using a lot of water. And so that's really inspiring to us, is how can we continue to position tahini, which is made from sesame, a truly sustainable crop if it's cultivated and kind of, facilitated in the right way, in order to maybe make a lasting effect within the nut and seed spread category as a whole.
I didn't even think of it that way. That's so interesting, the way the seeds are harvested and produced. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And my last question for you, because I know we're running out of time here, is what advice would you have for young entrepreneurs or founders in the food industry who have an idea but aren't quite sure if it'll succeed or how to turn it into a fully fledged business like you have?
I think the most important thing I'd say is to just start, just try. It doesn't need to be perfect. Our first jars that we brought over were not pretty packaging. We didn't work with a graphic designer on the label, and we just had the best possible with least resistance product to bring it to market and start testing it. And no, it wasn't ready for the shelves of Whole Foods, obviously, but it was ready to sample and get the input and the, start into a great market for us, which is the restaurant industry. And also, don't be afraid to share your idea. Food especially, there's very little, to be honest, proprietary about it, right? You can have a recipe and someone can change a gram of sugar and all of a sudden it's, a different recipe. And so the most important thing you can do is tell people about your idea, find those people that can help you and give you advice and make connections. And the more you talk about it and make these affirmations into the world, the more likely they will, I think, happen.
Absolutely. That was fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Amy. Truly, we appreciate you having here and sharing your wisdom. So thanks again.
Well, thank you to Forbes and for, putting us on the list in 2018 and continuing the relationship. It means a lot to us.